Okay, I'm live on YouTube. Welcome everybody. This is Weekly Astrology, and I'm glad to be here doing this live because I'm having Mercury retrograde issues. So bear with me. This technology is kind of new for me, but I think it's going to be useful and worthwhile. And it's a stopgap for the situation that I'm in with my computer, with my ability to do Adobe Premiere and edit how I'm used to editing. So let's just go ahead and get this started. I'm going to have a PPT, and let me just share my screen. There we go. So the astrology of the week of 15 February 2021 to 21 February 2021, I think about it as kind of easing in to our groove as we get into the rest of the winter. Remember, Pisces season completes the winter. And then as we ease into the rest of this year and into the summer, the sun will be in Pisces this week. That's one of the big stories, the sun's ingress into Pisces. And remember, Jupiter is now dignified by term in Aquarius. So we get that ruler of the sun having some dignity, our lovely greater benefic Jupiter. And Mercury will station direct in Aquarius. So I have here this idea of mind games. Maybe we're ready to start getting the mind into the game of life again and getting it quite activated. So that's the introduction. And I'm actually going to stop share here and just come back. So one of the big things I wanted just to share, just a few housekeeping points that I wanted to bring into, let's see here, that I wanted to bring into, before I launch in. It's a good object lesson what happened to me this week because Mercury came and retrograded. Sometimes we think about Mercury coming after it's in the heart of the sun and then it's retrograding, that maybe that's an easier time for the retrograde period. And I was certainly thinking it would be, and then Mercury was enclosed between the benefics and I had these tech issues unexpectedly. So it's a really good lesson, I think, for like us electional astrologers. We always recommend wait for Mercury to station direct, even though it might be an easier phase of the retrograde. It's good advice just to wait to do things until we get that Mercury at least station direct and starting to move forward again. So the other thing about it is I'm hoping that there's auspicious turnout for me because I have Mercury enclosed between the benefics, and I had to do some technology purchases actually because I have my old computer wasn't capable with the graphics card, I guess, to process Adobe Premiere. It was just on the edge of acceptability. But it's a lesson. And what I want to point out here about the astrology is that it's a lesson for us of the Mercury retrograde issues I often find, not always, but sometimes we can kind of predict them. It's like what technologically is old, that might be the thing that falls or fails. Like once I was traveling and everything blew up and I had these visas that I paid a company to get the proper transit visa for me, but that failed. And so that was predictable that maybe during the Mercury retrograde, those were active issues. So I'm auspicious because I knew I would have to upgrade at some point, and this forced me to do that. So I'm hoping, this is it's a kick in the butt, maybe with Mercury retrograde. So I'm viewing it that way. So yeah, that's a little bit of the housekeeping. Just wanted to clarify that. What I'm going to do this week also is release the little videos because I've already recorded my weekly astrology, but I'll release some videos on my YouTube channel just to capture my normal energy, which is with some music and some editing and some smooth kind of calm energy. So that will be coming, but it won't be the Sunday release and then the release on the podcast player. So just know that that's the housekeeping. Let's jump into the astrology. Let's jump into this astrology this week. I'm actually going to try to post a link here too on Twitter while we're talking about this. So I can, let's see here. So I'm not allowed to do this. Let me share here on Twitter. Just give me a quick second. I just told the people on Twitter that I would share it. So I'm going to go ahead and do that right now to honor that. But yeah, I mean, one thing I will say is that it's good to be here. I didn't know that if this was going to happen, and it's very, very, very good to be here. So I feel lucky. I feel grateful that I made it. Here is the link. I'm live now. Okay, let me just send this out. Okay, done. So let me jump into the PPT and we'll kind of get into it. The other thing actually about Mercury retrograde is that it's cool because when I first started my channel, I actually would do videos, you may have seen, where I had my PPT, and I would, those were edited still, but I would have a PPT that I worked with. So I'm kind of throwing back to my earlier style. So this is really cool. So yeah, astrology, the week of 2021, February 15th, February 2021 to 21, February 2021. I'm thinking about, like I said, this easing into theme. And it's actually, I already talked about this slide, so let me move on. So the big thing to notice early in the week, there's really no aspects I'm looking at, but we have this double Aries moon. Pardon me, this Mars activation with the moon, this Mars-moon relationship, first with an Aries moon. The moon's actually in Aries as we speak. So we're already having it here as we're starting to turn into the week. But we get this Aries moon until the 17th February. That's Wednesday here in Central Europe. But once the moon enters Taurus, it's with Mars. And so the moon will be ruled by Mars and then co-present with Mars. And so that's a lot of Mars moon for the first, 5 days of this week until Friday, when the moon enters Gemini on the 19th of February, about 5 p.m. here in Central Europe. And so I just want to meditate a little bit before we, as we get in here, about what does Mars moon mean? What are those combinations? And the one thing to think about is this Aries moon I'm actually a fan of, to a certain extent, because Saturn is sextiling this Aries moon right now, and Mars is averse. And so actually I'll show you the good thing about sharing this Zoom live is that I can toggle to my solar fire. See, my solar fire is reset to some other options. This isn't normally how I use a chart, but this is the chart of the moment. I love having Libra rising. So we're doing some Libra rising. The moon here is in the 5th house while I'm recording this. Sorry, Venus, the ruler of the ascendants, in the 5th house of creativity. Hopefully that can bring something nice to this stream. But you see here, here's the moon, and it's not making a difficult relationship to Mars, and it's this sextile to the pileup, to the massive pileup we've gone through, and it's a waxing moon. So we're kind of, to begin this week, we have this energy from the moon of maybe starting things, or waxing moons are always good to initiate things we want to grow. And Mars, setting aside its placement in Taurus for a second, is that planet of movement, is that planet of energy, and putting energy into a new activity. So I like having this here. And, I've always said this, you guys have probably heard me say it, when the moon is averse to Mars, I like that, even if it's a Mars-ruled moon. You actually see this in the Queen Elizabeth coronation, Queen Elizabeth the first coronation chart, I believe. It's a Mars-ruled moon, and then Mars is dignified. I could be wrong on that, but it's nice when the moon can be ruled by a malefic planet, but doesn't have to mix with it in a dynamically activated way. So that's what we have right now. The problem is we have to deal with this Mars and Taurus and this energy, which has been so stifling, and inertia, inert. These are keywords I've been thinking about with Mars and Taurus. And yeah, Mars, Venus and Taurian energy is luxuriating. It's passive, not in a gendered way, but passive just in, and we want to relax. I mean, I know I do. Mars wants to move. So there's this tension. And so let me go back, and I'll just show you here. We'll animate this through. You get it here, right on, here it is. The moon there hits Uranus, and the moon is with Mars here until Friday. So this is the big theme to start the week. And, I was thinking as I was meditating on this, we usually think about digging into the earth with a Mars and Taurus. That's an earth sign, digging in to make things happen, maybe housework, gardening, exercise for health, moving the body. The moon's exalted at Taurus, so it's it could be body, feeling the body, pleasure with the body. But it's been a rough slog. I mean, there's no denying that. I know some folks out there were like, I love this Aquarius pileup, and more power to you. Definitely don't want to take that away. But there was a lot of folks who were saying, man, this is some of the toughest energy I've felt in a long time. I think it's in no small part that Mars is in Taurus. There's a slog there, and that Mars had to square from an inferior position, that pileup. So what I was saying here is that it might be tough to do those things. It's like, so my point is, we have this Mars moon energy until Friday, but it's not like, oh, I can go out and do all of this stuff now. No, Mars has been stifled. Mars is still squaring now, 4 planets? 5 planets, I believe. Let me see here. Mars is still squaring. Yeah, 5 planets until the sun enters Pisces. So that's still heavy duty overcoming energy onto Mars. And so my big theme here with these first 5 days of the week with Mars moon energy, the moon is breath according to Vedius Valence. You can just look it up in the Riley translation. He says the moon's breath. And I find that breath work, if we're feeling a slog, if we're feeling down, if the energy levels are still, one of maybe more passive and wanting to stay in bed with the covers on, it's cold everywhere, started snowing here heavily this last couple of days. The breath can really be an activating force. It can bring those exertion levels up. I do a breath work called Kapalabhati. It's from the yogic tradition. And I love it. I try to start my day with it or activate it when I need to. But you can do other types of breath work. The breath is a genius thing. It's involuntary, but it's also can be controlled as well. So, there's all kinds of breath work. I would just say explore that and use the breath here, the moon, to help activate that Mars. I see the moon here maybe being, it's kind of a, not a paradox, but it's maybe inverted what we normally think. The moon here, the breath and the body might be needed to trigger the Mars and get that Mars and Taurus going. So that's the first 5 days of the week, this Mars moon theme. Do your breath work if you can, or body stretching to try to get going, to try to fight off whatever kind of inert sensations you're feeling. All right, and I'm going to check here. I've got my live up on my app here. Maybe if there's comments, I don't know if there's comments. I will. So this action isn't allowed. Let me try to go into my other account. I will respond to questions here. While if you have any, I'd like to do that. Let me see here if I can go to. So here it is. Yeah, 21 watching, and yeah, I can see the chat. So if you want to write anything, just go ahead and I can interact with you here. But okay, let's go next. Let's go to the first aspect I'm really interested in this week. This is here on Thursday, 18 February. It's going to be right about noon here where I am and in Central Europe. But the sun will come into Pisces, and I'm really optimistic about it. The thing is, the sun had 2 months of being ruled by Saturn. And even though Saturn's in Aquarius, there's a lot to like about this Saturn. New structure, new rules, difficult to enforce that, but maybe auspicious in that we're maturing. That's still a tough energy for the consciousness, the light of the consciousness. And the sun was in its sign of exile here in Aquarius. Now that is over. And the sun gets to be ruled by this Jupiter, which is right here in its Egyptian term. And I think that we're going to have a big sense of easing. I like that term ease. I initially said kickstart. I don't think this is a kickstart energy. I think it's an ease where Jupiter can kind of relax us. And I've got this metaphor about the bath. I've been thinking a lot about the bath energy. Sometimes we just ease into water. We just, and we just feel that water kind of come over the body. I think that that is really where I'm going with this. And it's the last edge of winter, and so there's still that coolness, but now we're getting warm. And one thing about Pisces is that it's a beginning and an ending. It's that point, that Aries 0 point. Well, Pisces is the sign before that. So in a way, we're being led through Pisces energy into a beginning. And at the same time, it's a closure and an ending. And so it's kind of that Ouroboros, the snake eating its tail. It's that tail point. And there's something, I think, metaphorically and archetypically significant about that. A lot of modern astrologers and contemporary, maybe new astrological thought has Pisces as this expansive, diffuse energy, kind of the oneness of everything, feeling that. I don't disagree with that. And I think we can see it even in the traditional models that Pisces is ruled by Jupiter. Jupiter's the largest planet. It's the greater benefic. And it's a water sign, and large water is like at the ocean, I think is a nice metaphor, and water goes over everything. It doesn't discriminate. Water will cover anything, and maybe fire can burn water off, but still water will be there, and so I do think there's something about expansiveness here as we get into a new beginning. It's almost like the end comes, like in a film, you have a climax and then you have those few scenes at the end that are kind of soft and settled, and the whole film can kind of come full circle. That's what we're going to experience here before we get into Aries season in about a month. The lovely thing to love about this Pisces season is that Venus will be exalted in Pisces, and Venus will join here about 7 days during the sun's time. in Pisces. So the sun will be with an exalted Venus. That's a lovely energy. It might give us time for beauty. Maybe the Valentine, that love energy comes later here with that sun having support. Look for beautiful things. You know, the sun is our consciousness. It's what we perceive. You can seek it out and search it out. You know, I think sometimes there's an intentionality that comes with beautiful things where we have to kind of say, okay, things are beautiful and let me see them and let me look for them. I like photography. You guys probably follow me on Instagram. That's part of that practice. You're out there looking for beauty everywhere. I think this exalted Venus, when it joins the sun, will be an opportunity for that. So, and then the other thing, Mars will be in a sextile relationship for the first 2 weeks of the sun's time here in Pisces. So that second week, you'll have a sextile to Mars and a co-presence with Venus. I think that will be the real juicy time of Pisces season. Jupiter will still be the Egyptian term. Jupiter leaves that Egyptian term, its own Egyptian term, the last 5 degrees of the sun's transit here. So that second week is, I think, the juiciest time of this Pisces season. You know, the other thing, I talked about the expansive waters here, but back to the Bath transit. You know, the sun is fire, it's heat. And if this is like a water, we say Pisces, let's say for this purpose of this metaphor, it's a bath. I don't know if you guys have had this. When I was growing up, baths were big. I think for kids, baths are a bigger thing than adults, especially since you don't have them everywhere. But it was always like, heat up the bath for me. Hey, can you warm the bath for me? And there was this process before we entered the bath where there was the heating of the bath and getting the bath ready to enter. You know, maybe Venus in this metaphor, once it hits Pisces, is like the bath bomb. You know, I see those on Instagram. Sometimes they put the colored bath bombs and they make the water beautiful with and smelling good. But the sun here is that heat, the heating of the water, so that we're ready for entry into the water and we're building here into something really nice. And in terms of the astrology, we might think that this whole Pisces season is kind of the heating of the waters for when Jupiter enters Pisces in May. That is one of the biggest stories of 2021. We get Jupiter in Pisces. We get this activated, supported Jupiter ruling 2 parts of our charts, the Pisces house and the Sagittarius house. And that's coming for 3 months this year. So we're heating the waters. And I think ease is the right thing here because it's not turned up to 100 yet. I think that comes in May and June, where we'll really start feeling what this is building here too. But this is the sun heating that bath now here in Pisces season. Okay, so let's move on. Enjoy it. I can't wait for this. I mean, you know, frankly, I'll say this here, but there was a tweet this week. Someone tweeted out, a non-astrologer was saying, it was the day of the new moon, the Aquarius pileup, the big climax that we're now coming off of. Someone tweeted, "Is this the worst day of the pandemic for you guys, or am I just crazy?" And there was like thousands of responses and retweets and hundreds of thousands of likes. And if you read those comments, everybody was saying yes, yes, yes. So I think it wasn't for everybody. Obviously, some people were doing really well, but for many, many, many people, there was this feeling of the weight and the heaviness of the world right now. And it sort of climaxed right in that new moon moment. But now we're coming off that climax. So I think, you know, again, this is that warming of the bath and that building to maybe later in the year where this Piscean climax comes. Okay, so let's move. The next aspect I want to check here, Saturday, right? So where I am, it'll be at 12:03 a.m. So just as Friday turns into Saturday, Venus squares Mars, and that there's a perfecting aspect there. So if you're in North America, that will be Friday evening, you know, just maybe as you're getting off of work or just getting into the evening. Excuse me. So Mars, I love this aspect actually, because, you know, we talked earlier here about Mars and Taurus being maybe giving way to, you know, people will say this is a lazy, that's a key word here, but I don't, you know, that seems a little bit accusatory to me. I just think there's a sense of wanting comfort. There is if there's a choice between being comfortable and moving and getting active with Mars, people will, the tendency with this energy is to stay with comfort. That's why I like staying in the bed under the covers as a metaphor. You know, and so that's not going to be functional. I mean, can we do it for 5 minutes? I like to say, like, all right, I'll give myself 5 more minutes. You know, that the classic 5 more minutes, hit the snooze, 5 more minutes. You do that 100 times, then you miss your day. That's an extreme case, but this is Venus coming to aid Mars. It's perfecting this aspect in earlier position here. We call this overcoming. this is Venus having power to flood Mars. You see that bold red line, flooding Mars with its power and energy and love. And Venus rules Mars. And so this is Mars getting a shot here from Venus, basically saying, I think, I love you and you need to get out and do some stuff. I love you. It's okay. Go ahead and you've had enough comfort. Maybe you can start moving here a little bit. And I was thinking about this. I had an uncle, and he always used to tell me this. I would call him. I would say, I'm hurting. This was my early 20s. That's a tough time. 23, 12th house perfection year. I probably talked to him a lot then. But, as I was becoming who I am now, I went through trial and tribulation. But he was a key part of my support system. And I used to call him, and he was the one person I could be totally honest with. I would tell him what's going on, all the crazy stuff I had been doing. And he would always just say, go to the mirror, look in the mirror, tell yourself you love yourself. And that was so powerful. You look and you can make eye contact with yourself and send those messages of love. I really think that's just the metaphor that came to me as I was looking at this earlier. And it's mainly because Venus is in Aquarius. The Aquarian energy is a communicative energy. Mercury rules by night triplicity. Mercury's there, about to station direct, so co-present here. And I think this Venus is about communicating love, particularly that long-standing love, that grounded, rooted love that is Saturn, Aquarius, Saturn ruling Aquarius. And that is self-love. Self-love is the central type of love that drives everything. Some people say if we don't love ourselves, it can be hard to love other people. So I think this is that kind of rooted, grounded, structural, communicative type of self-love, communicating it to ourselves as a way to get moving with Mars. And I also think it's a way to assuage some of the negative self-talk that might have come up. I know for me, it has a little bit. I'm not as productive as I'd like to be. Hey, this is the climax of a difficult winter. So, I love you, SJ. I love you. And that for self-forgiveness, to get rid of maybe shame of inactivity, sometimes that releases and allows action to happen when it's like, okay, I gave myself permission to do nothing, actually. F it. I'll just do nothing. And then sometimes that's what I need for that release. And that permission is given and that love is given no matter what, then maybe I actually can start getting active. And that's why I think it can give a shot here to the Mars and maybe get us moving a little bit. The other thing, and that's what I was saying here on this next slide, is that renewed momentum can come from words of encouragement. We mollify the weight and the heaviness by saying, I love you anyway. I love you anyway. Loving yourself despite the slow start, confusion, and inaction of Mars and Taurus, if that's been your story, particularly being overcome by the Aquarian pileup. So, and here, the final point, it's even more auspicious because Venus is in Mars' Egyptian term. So Venus is depending on Mars, and Mars, of course, is ruled by Venus in the domicile of Venus and Taurus. So there's this mutual reception, a kind of half mutual reception. I don't know if we have a good term for that, but partial, mutual reception by different types of dignity. And I think it's still a type of mutual reception because they depend on each other still, and they need each other. So it underscores even more the importance, I think, of loving ourselves despite of the things we haven't done, the things we haven't been able to do. It's like, okay, it's fine. That's water under the bridge. That's over. So let me move here. And this is my transit of the week. I'm coming here to this Gemini moon, and there's actually a moon here earlier in the week. There's a moment while the moon's in Aries. Here, I'll get it up on, I'll share my Animate page, but there's a moment while the moon's in Aries where the moon will be separating from Jupiter and applying to Venus. We call this bonification by enclosure between the benefics. And what it does is it gives the moon really extra strength and power, gives the whole sky, the soul of the sky, just a lot of power. And for the things that the moon wants to represent. And that right now is, and I like to, as you guys know, I always go to lunar mansions here. I find the lunar mansions, the Renaissance, medieval lunar mansions, the 28th division, the tropical lunar mansions, to really be instructive about the zodiac. I find them to really tell us about and inform us about the signs of the zodiac and what they want to signify. But for me here, I could have picked this as a transit of the week. I talked earlier about Saturn being in a sextile, Mars being inverse. It's just, I don't like the ruler of the moon being so weak here, Mars in Taurus. And so I went with this Gemini moon that you get later. You have to wait for this moon until the moon gets about within 7 degrees here of Venus. But anyhow, let me go back to my other sheet. I have the transit I picked out on that sheet. So here it is. You got the moon rising here, 21 degrees Gemini, 22nd degree of Gemini, applying to Venus, separating from Jupiter. And this lunar mansion is the 7th lunar mansion. This is going to be 21 February, Sunday, about 11 a.m. here in Central Europe. This is great for business and trade and for obtaining the favor of superiors. This comes from a site called Lunarium that does a really nice job of summarizing the lunar mansions. I've quoted it here. I made this PDF. This is for me to read, and so I didn't actually quote. Here's Astro Twitter. Let me actually go to that site so I can just give them a little bit of credit here. Let me share screen. So here's the site. You just type in Lunarium Mansions of the Moon, and you'll get this Lunarium UK site. Wonderful resource. But if we go to that 7th lunar mansion, this is what I was just reading from on my PPT. It goes in and quotes some of the most important writers on the mansions. Warnock, of course, is a real big influence on me. I love his books, and I've been heavily influenced by his work. But you get Agrippa, you get everything. So Agrippa says confers gain in friendship, profitable to lovers, etc. But this is my transit of the week. And so I think with the Gemini moon here, you can look to, again, it's waxing. Maybe we can do business. And the thing about this exact election here is that Mercury will have stationed direct a few hours before this. We're going to talk about that here in a second. And so you do have the very powerful Mercury when it's in that stationary point, particularly stationing direct. It removes the obstacles, the older texts say, and it gets strong. And so Mercury now can do what Mercury wants, and it's moving forward again. Maybe it's time to do a little bit of business or trade. I don't know if you've had Mercury retrograde problems, but some Mercury retrograde problems, we can delay the purchases, right? I had to go get something today so I can do my work. I've got to edit my videos, get my Premiere Pro back up. So I couldn't wait, but this might be a time next weekend to get that phone if you've been using your old phone or something. Once you have the moon in late Gemini, ruled by this Mercury stationing direct. The one thing I will mention, astrologers in the Renaissance and medieval astrologers, they actually started saying that you can use the moon here close to the North Node as a way to expand goodness. And there's an old passage in Dorotheus where he's talking about prices in elections. And he says you get higher prices when the moon is with the North Node, and you get lower prices when the moon is with the South Node. And so that became later in the tradition an actual electional astrological principle, put the moon with the North Node. However, if you go with older texts, and this is not just Dorotheus, but it's Hephaestion, Valens, you want to have the moon away from the nodes. You don't want it to be near the eclipse points because of the symbolism. So that's the one thing about this. You just have the moon here close to the North Node. And it's a debate. It's an astrological debate. We always like to debate things. I'm thinking, it's separating here somewhat, and I like this Mercury being direct here. So I'm not as worried about it. I would not be using this for some kind of formal election because of that North Node component, but I still think we can just use it in our normal course of business and know that's what's going on and kind of feel that good energy. The risk with the North Node, the Vedic tradition, it's got the head and tail of the snake, that head of the snake. There's something there about too much appetite, right? With the North Node, we get too maybe ambitious or too desirous. And so maybe there's overspending. I'd watch for overspending if you do use this. Okay. Next week, not this week, we're going to have a lovely Cancer moon waxing. I'll talk all about that next week, but that's when I think there might be some decent, opportunities too. So, okay, let me move. Now we're here on Sunday. So the moon enters Gemini on Friday at 5. The election I like is in late Gemini, where I am. That's about 11 a.m. on Sunday. But before that, so now we're here at 2 a.m. on Sunday. We have Mercury stationing direct, and it gets its groove back. It gets its power back. It's my favorite metaphor for this is when you're feeling ill. just in general. Planetary retrograde can be like that planet feeling ill. What do you do once you can start get your energy back, once you can stomach food again? First you eat big meals, right, to get the nutrients back into your body, but then it's time to go out and cover ground. You miss a couple of days of work or school. Okay, you got to make up tests. You got to do the things you weren't able to do when you were down on your back. And this is like that moment when you realize, okay, I'm back. And then you have to go out and cover that lost ground. So I'm loving this. And this has been an intense Mercury retrograde. My gosh. I mean, not only my technical stuff, but just it coincided with a rare climax of 6 planets in Aquarius that was super, super heavy duty, like I was saying earlier. So I'm happy here that this is another, the sun in Pisces is the beginning of a dissipation of that really challenging climax. This is kind of the second phase of that, because now you have Mercury moving forward. And so we're now getting away, slowly easing away from this difficult, winter climax that we all felt. The one thing I want to think about here too is that Mercury gets to go back over Jupiter and Venus. That's the good thing. We just had Mercury coming and hitting Venus, then Jupiter, Mercury being retrograde, looking to those planets for support during its retrograde. But now Mercury gets to come back and give the gifts, that it maybe learned during its retrograde, and support Jupiter and support Venus. And so I think those might be more mercurial focused conjunctions later. It's not this week, they'll be later, I think next week and even the week after, when Mercury finally gets to Venus. And so I love that Mercury can give aid. Communication is a part of all of life. We need that for almost everything we do. And so that aid of words, aid of language, aid of analysis that's coming with this direct Mercury is quite lovely too. What is Mercury? Games, analytical things, paperwork, shopping. It's in Venus's term, this direct station. So this might be time to, get busy paying for pleasure. I was saying earlier about paying for the technology that failed, if that's how your Mercury RX went. But sometimes people wait, like I tell my clients, like, don't sign the business paperwork, don't buy the house, wait until you get that Mercury not retrograde, remove that obstacle. And so this might be time, sometimes when we pay for things, Mercury's money, right? Mercury's business. We do that because we want to feel good. And we think that what we're going to buy is going to give us pleasure. And with Venus there, co-present, Venus' Egyptian term being where Mercury is, I think we can start thinking about that. Maybe a massage, paying for something that might help you feel good or feel lovely about yourself, an upgrade, going to that hairdresser, going to get your, what are they called? The coloration, I might get color highlights at some point when my hair is kind of long enough now, but I've always been kind of not jealous, but I look at my female friends and they're all like, wow, or just friends that get color highlights. And they were big on that. I wonder if that's okay. I guess it's okay for me to do, but anyhow, I'm just kind of, I'll stop with my hair journey. I'll just say one more thing. As a kid, I was never really allowed to grow this. My family was always more conservative. So I always had buzz cuts. And so this is the first time in my life I've had it. So that's why I talk about it sometimes on my channel. All right, let's go. So anyhow, this is a real nice thing on Sunday. I think we're going to feel, and as Mercury stations on Saturday, then stations direct on Sunday, it empowers that Mercury. And I always look for things with like astrology. Mercury signifies astrology. Maybe on Twitter, we'll have some nice conversations, or I know some astrologers haven't been on Twitter. Maybe there'll be some renewed astrological discussion. I always look for that when Mercury gets strength, because I love it. It's one of those manifestations that always happens. Astrologers doing cool astrologer stuff. So that's Sunday, 21 February. All right, let me go here. This is I got 2 more slides, but I want to talk about a fixed star that Mercury is very close to during this station. It's called Albali. And this is kind of beautiful because it's symbolically teaching us something, I think, about this moment. Remember, I just said the Mercury stationing direct is that second release or dissipation of the difficult climax that we had just gone through. But there's something here. Let me show you. Here's the picture. Here's Albali right here. It's in the left hand of the water bearer. And it's this rod or stick that's being held. And I always think about this fixed star and this left hand as like a support. Because remember, in the right hand, he's got the water, he's pouring it out. And so he's kind of stabilizing himself to hold that water that's being poured out onto the earth. I love the idea of the Aquarian water, of love, of your goodness, what you can offer the world, right? That's what Aquarius is. It's divine energy. Saturn ruling Aquarius. Saturn is the sphere closest to God. This is divine energy. Mercury, the planet that communicates with the gods. And actually, Ptolemy says here that Al-Bali is of the nature of Saturn and Mercury. So we actually get this Saturn-Mercury mix. There's actually some contemporary astrologers writing about, I forgot the astrologer. This is in the Austin Coppock edited essays about astrological magic. I can't think of that title of that book now. One of those essays talks about Mercury and Saturn being the occult planets. And so there's a sense here of the Mercury messaging with the gods, right? Interfacing with the gods, and Saturn being that closest sphere to the heavens, but you're pouring out your godly energy, onto the world. And I love this metaphor because we are now, like I said, dissipating from the difficult climax of 2021, but we've endured it. It's been challenging, and I'm future forward now. For me, this year now becomes about like getting ready for summer and Jupiter's ingress into Pisces and the changes, the auspicious changes that's going to bring. But now it's like we've gone through the difficulty, and that might be finding the stability, right? Al-Bali. We found what we can hold on to now. We've gone through the difficulty. We've found it. We're holding the stability to pour this stuff out. March, April, May, June, July, as we get that lovely Piscean energy. So again, it's also, this is the water bearer. Maybe this is the actual water in this metaphor. We can think of it as the actual Piscean waters that we're stabilizing to pour out in terms of the sun's ingress into Pisces, etc. So I love this fixed star conjunction. I think it's a lovely metaphor. And that is the end of weekly astrology here. I'm not going to pull any cards. I'm going to release the rest. I've already recorded a video. So hopefully I can get my stuff up and running, and I will release the tarot reading that I recorded, and I'll release probably little clips to talk about these aspects. There'll be some repetition, but at least, it'll be available in some shorter clips. Hey, why not try something new this week as things kind of went strange for me. So that is the weekly astrology. Thanks for being here. I'm real happy I got to do this in spite of the hiccups. As always, you can book astrology and tarot readings with me, sjanderson144.com. Click here to schedule a reading. You'll go to my scheduler. I look forward to reading for you. It's always an honor and a privilege. And have a great week. And again, I'm just rolling with this. So thanks for bearing with me. And we will talk soon. I'm going to end this live. This is the first time I've done this. Let me see how this works. Stop share.